Good morning. Our opening words this morning were selected by Reverend Peter Friedrichs as part of his service that centered on the sermon that we'll be hearing this morning. They are taken from an ancient Sanskrit text, and they can be found in the back of your hymnal. Look to this day, for it is life, the very life of life. In its brief course lie all the realities and truths of existence, the joy of growth, the splendor of action, the glory of power. For yesterday is but a memory, and tomorrow is only a vision. But today, well lived, makes every yesterday a memory of happiness, and every tomorrow a vision of hope. Look well, therefore, to this day. Or to put it another way, which is not in the back of your hymnal, forget the past, you cannot change it. Forget the future, you cannot predict it. Forget the present, I didn't get you one.
I'd like to officially welcome you to Buckman Bridge Unitarian Universalist Church, or BBUUC. My name is Alyssa Halliday, and I'm happy to be your worship leader today. I fell in love with this church over 4 years ago. BBUUC is a church for all. No matter how you identify yourself or what path you follow, you are welcome here. We believe that everyone has a right to question, to wonder, and to find. As we are all navigating through this wondrous journey of life, I am grateful that you have chosen to be here with us today. I'd especially like to welcome and acknowledge any guests that came out to join us on this beautiful day after Christmas. If you are a new visitor, we warmly welcome you to our beloved church. We are so happy to be back in the sanctuary as we continue to adjust our worship services to accommodate the safety and well-being of everyone while living through this pandemic. Although our after-service refreshments have been suspended, we invite you to keep the conversation going after the church, outside of the sanctuary where it's a little safer to congregate. And now, let us listen to our opening hymn, number 128, For All That Is Our Life. Life is a gift for which we are grateful. We gather in community to celebrate the glories and mysteries of this great gift. From Marjorie Montgomery. Thank you, Joseph. Today begins the first day of Kwanzaa. I'd like to read a prayer from Reverend Ade Ama Kraba, honoring this important celebration of culture. O come, all you faithful, rejoicing and victorious. Come, let us embrace the mystery in the spirit of life as we celebrate the goodness of Kwanzaa and the African American heritage. Come and give thanks for companions on the journey in the struggle for freedom and justice. Our roots in soil and soul of Mother Africa reach far and wide. Creator of all, lead us to be true to our nature with respect and dignity for life, from conception to its natural end at death. Bless and keep us in solidarity to one another. Ashe.
There is this man who loves to read the Sunday newspaper cover to cover. There is just one problem. This man has a 5-year-old daughter who, for as much as her dad loves to read the paper, loves to interrupt him while doing so. The man tries everything to keep her occupied, but to no avail. Finally, one day as he's trying to read, he comes across the travel section and has an idea. There, across the whole front page, there's a map of the world. He rips off the page and tears it into little pieces. He calls his daughter over to him and shows her the little pieces. He says, "Honey, here's a game for you. It's a puzzle. Go grab some tape and see what we can do to put the pieces back together the way they belong." She cheerfully agreed and ran off. 5 minutes later, however, his daughter came back with the page all taped together. The man shook his head amazed. Though he wondered if she had just put the pieces back haphazardly, a careful inspection revealed the map was perfectly reconstructed. He looked at his daughter in disbelief. She must surely be a genius. "How did you figure it out so quickly?" She shrugged and said, "It was easy, Daddy. On the other side of the paper, there is a picture of a person. I know what a person looks like. I just put the person together and the whole world fell into place." The end.
We are the gift we give to ourselves today in this present moment. Let us unwrap the knots and tensions of the past weeks. Let us be grateful for the gifts we receive daily and the gifts we give to ourselves. Take a moment. Take a moment to make yourself comfortable. Gently close your eyes. Breathe deep. Notice all the ways you are comfortable now. Take a breath and give thanks as you exhale. Gently notice the places where you are still wrapped up. Gently notice the places where you still feel tied up in knots. Can you see them as bows and ribbons? These ribbons have helped you in the past, but today is your present. Gently untie the bows. Breathe as the ribbons fall away. see the beautiful gift that is you, opening to a new day. Open your eyes. Open your heart. Welcome here today.
Our sermon today was written by Reverend Peter A. Friedrichs. Reverend Friedrichs is the minister of the UU Church of Delaware County. He authored the sermon about Forest Church's Be Who You Are, which we heard back in August. Before we hear this sermon, I'd like to share a quote from Elizabeth Gilbert that Reverend Friedrichs will reference in his sermon. I am burdened with what the Buddhists call the monkey mind. The thoughts that swing from limb to limb, stopping only to scratch themselves, spit, and howl. My mind swings wildly through time, touching on dozens of ideas a minute, unharnessed and undisciplined. You are, after all, what you think. Your emotions are the slaves to your thoughts, and you are the slave to your emotions.
Well, the waiting is finally over. After weeks of anticipation, Christmas has come and gone for another year. Since Thanksgiving, at least, we have looked forward to it, counting off the days on the calendar, comparing the winnowing hours to the chores on our to-do list. And if you're like me, getting squeezed in between that rock and that particular hard place. Some of us look forward to Christmas with the wide-eyed innocence and anticipation of a child, delighting in the magic of the season. Some approach the time with fear and trepidation. Others still with a sense of benign resignation that once again we won't get done what we wanted to do, and we won't get the Christmas cards out until after New Year's, if at all. Regardless of whether you believe in the miraculous birth of the Christ child, the entire season of Advent, the entire season, the 4 weeks preceding Christmas, is a time of waiting, of preparation, of expectancy, and looking forward. If for nothing else, looking forward to the expression of joy on the face of someone special, whom you've surprised with a particularly thoughtful present, or looking forward to receiving a heartfelt gift from a loved one. I got just what I wanted for Christmas this year. I began taking guitar lessons nearly a year ago. And my wife wanted me to have just the right guitar for the style of music I've been playing. So we talked about it, and we ordered it online. It wasn't expensive. It's an import, but of good quality. And it arrived at our house nearly a month ago. But it was a Christmas present, so the deal was that I had to wait until Christmas to play it. For nearly 4 weeks, this beautiful guitar sat in its case in my study where I could see it every day. Every day I longed to pick it up and play it. But I was good. I resisted the temptation, and oh, did I look forward to Christmas. I couldn't wait to get my hands on that guitar. Day after day, I dreamed about the beautiful sounds that would emanate from its body. Sounds that in my dreams were far more beautiful than the ones I could actually make at this stage of my music-making career. I could hear the strings ringing out, the bass line thumping beneath a great blues riff. Every time I walked past that case, my eyes were drawn to it, and I looked at it longingly, like a sumptuous meal viewed through the window of a restaurant I couldn't afford to enter. So, when Christmas finally arrived, I was like the proverbial kid in the candy store. I pulled the guitar from its case, I began to tune it up, and then I broke a string. With a loud twang and a bang, there I sat, this beautiful instrument in my lap, and I still couldn't play it. After all this waiting, I had to wait one day more until the music store opened and I could buy a new string. But now it's got all 6 strings attached and it's ready to go. And for the past few days, I've been having a ball with it. Granted, it doesn't make the sounds that I dreamed of for these past weeks, but that's not the guitar's fault. It occurred to me that we do a lot of looking forward, and not just around Christmas time. As we stand on the cusp of a new year, I'm already busy making plans for next summer, looking forward to visiting my daughter in Africa. I'm looking forward to our soul-storming summit that's going to be happening at the church at the end of January. I'm looking forward to countless other events that loom on the horizon in 2008, many of which are already scheduled on my calendar. As human beings who have a consciousness about the future, it's natural for us to plan what we'll be doing in the next hour or day or month or year. We look at the trajectory of time and we see our lives laid out before us. And by making plans, we attempt to gain some degree of control over the future. As a result of all of our planning, we expend much of our psychic energy on what may or may not come to pass. We plot and plan the paths of our careers and our relationships, on the not-yets and the maybes and the hope-sos. We picture our prospects and our potentials, making the adjustments necessary as we experience the realities of day-to-day living. At the same time, many of us spend an equal or even greater time reliving the past. It's not just on New Year's Eve that many of us raise our metaphoric toasts to auld lang syne or days gone by. Just as our human brain enables us to consider the future, so does it empower us to bring to mind the past. Since we learn from our experiences, or at least we like to think that we do, reliving our past serves a useful purpose. As they say, experience is the thing that enables us to recognize a mistake when we make it again. Or to put it another way that I've heard, experience is the worst teacher. It gives you the test, and then it gives you the lesson. And yet, for all the values and insights that we gain from our experiences, we are often inclined to relive or remain in the past, and not always to our benefit. We harbor long-held grudges like half-healed wounds that we can't help but pick at. We resent the families we were born into or the jobs that we ended up with. We live in a place of regret over choices we've made, wondering what might have been if only our lives had been different. Or we compare our ordinary, mundane lives to that one sparkling moment in the sun that we experienced long ago when we made the game-winning catch in the big football game, or we got the lead part in the high school musical. And we're still sure that we could have played in the big leagues or sung on the Broadway stage if only we had gotten the break we deserved. For some of us, as Bruce Springsteen says, time slips away and leaves us with nothing but boring stories of glory days. There is, as the Buddhists like to remind us, a middle path. The danger of living in the past or constantly hoping for the future is that we miss out on the present, the things that are right in front of us. The title of this sermon, This Very Moment, is borrowed from a book of the same name that was written by James Ishmael Ford, minister of the First Unitarian Society of Newton, Massachusetts. In this work, Ford introduces UUs to the spiritual practices of Zen Buddhism, and he discusses how to integrate that practice with the principles of Unitarian Universalism. Ford writes that the bottom line is that we need to attend. When we genuinely attend to the moment, we discover that our hopes for the future and the memories of the past are reconciled in the fully lived moment. Here and now is the place where all things come together. Here, in this very moment, we find who and what we are. Ford offers us some basic instruction on the Zen practice of sitting meditation. This practice, which I suspect many of us have tried and a few may follow, is Ford's way of preparing to encounter the vagaries of our day-to-day lives and integrating the inner world with the outer. Sitting, he says, prepares him to attend and be present to the experiences that life has to offer. Through meditation, we come to know ourselves more completely and to appreciate our unity with all there is. And with that knowledge, we are better able to live in sympathy and compassion with all living things and to realize the fullness of our humanity. This idea that sitting quietly leads us to clarity of thought and spirit is well illustrated by a story told by Thich Nhat Hanh, the Vietnamese Buddhist monk, in his book, The Sun, My Heart. He tells of caring for a young Vietnamese refugee girl who was playing outside with some friends. The children came inside, asking Nhat Hanh for something cool to drink. He poured the three of them some homemade apple cider, the girl receiving the last glass. The girl's juice was mixed with the pulp from the bottom of the bottle, and she refused to drink it. She went back to playing with her friends, and a short time later returned asking for some water. Thich Nhat Hanh reminded her of the glass of juice sitting on the table, and looking at it, the girl was surprised to see that the juice was no longer cloudy. She asked, "Is this a different glass?" To which Nhat Hanh replied, "No, it's the same one as before. It sat quietly for a while, and now it's clear and delicious." The bright young girl asked Nhat Hanh if the cider was meditating, like she had seen him meditate. To which the monk replied, "Let's say I imitate the apple juice when I meditate. That's closer to the truth." In his book, The Miracle of Mindfulness, Thich Nhat Hanh offers another form of meditation that's more active than sitting Zen. The Sutra of Mindfulness, as he calls it, requires us to be present simply to the activity that we're engaged in at any particular moment. When we're washing the dishes, for example, we should not be thinking about the meal we have just enjoyed or the tasks that we need to accomplish after the dishes are done. Instead, the sutra calls us to focus our mind on the fact that we're washing the dishes. Feel the warmth of the water. Feel the slippery quality of the soap. When we peel an orange to eat it, he says, we should experience peeling and eating the orange, calling to mind the combination of the sun and the rain and the human labor that brought the orange into being, rather than simply stuffing section after section into our mouths. The Sutra of Mindfulness requires us to always be conscious of what our body is doing at any particular time, calling ourselves to experience the present moment with the fullness of our consciousness. I long to find a way to be consistently present to what James Ford calls the beauty and grace of this moment, to experience the reality, as he says, that this very moment is both the doorway to heaven and heaven itself. I'm attracted to the Buddhist spiritual practices offered by Ford, Thich Nhat Hanh, and others, but I find them exceedingly difficult to sustain. I have sat in silence, listening to my breath, till all the chatter in my head subsided, at least for a few seconds. And I have washed the dishes while washing the dishes. But more often than not, when I do actually sit quietly for a time, I find my mind more often behaving like the monkey mind that Elizabeth Gilbert talked about in Alyssa's reading. Even though I have experienced some new awareness and insight from my sporadic encounters with these practices, I am challenged to carve out the time in my busy day to meditate or to take 15 minutes to eat an orange. I wonder if any of you feel the same way. The present sits squarely between the past and the future. And I think the reality is that we're never going to be able to be fully aware of the here and now and simultaneously successfully negotiate our daily lives. I think it's important to admit that we live in a tension between the weight of yesterday and the pull of tomorrow, and I wonder whether our goal should be simply to strike a balance somewhere in the middle, which draws us closer to the present. Does anyone here know what a bongo board is? It's a small plank, sits on a cylindrical piece of wood, it's kind of like a miniature seesaw. And the object of a bongo board is to learn to balance with your feet spread out onto the board while it's sitting on the cylinder. Now, I used to think that the way to stay on the bongo board was to find the center and learn to stay there, to find the perfect balance point between my feet where the two halves of the board are perfectly aligned on each side of the cylinder and to hold on to that position as long as I could. But unless you're a member of the Shanghai Acrobatic Troupe, that is an impossible feat. It's like trying to stay upright on a bicycle that's standing still. The trick to staying on the board is not to stay in one place, but to move intentionally. You need to shift your weight from one side to the other, raising one end while lowering the other, never straying to either extreme or staying in one place for too long. It's all about staying in constant conscious motion. Here, balance is not a static thing to be achieved and maintained. It is instead dynamic. I think life is a lot like this. We are constantly balancing ourselves between the past and the future, always moving between the two. It's a delicate dance that requires us to pay attention to where we are at any particular moment, including this very moment, and to monitor that we don't tip too far toward one side or the other. The picture of a life in dynamic balance gives me permission to move freely from the past to the present and on into the future and then back again. It relieves me of the pressure to seek that perfect point of the present and to hold on to it, sometimes desperately, when I find it. While I yearn to discover a spiritual practice that moves me closer to a perfectly centered life, and I encourage all of you to seek out your particular path toward enlightenment, perhaps a life held in dynamic balance is enough for now. May it be so.
I'd like to call Joseph back up to the front as we prepare to extinguish our chalice. Our closing words this morning were written by Reverend Richard Leonard.
I personally know Dick Leonard. He is Minister Emeritus at All Souls Unitarian Church in New York City, which was my home congregation for 30 years. And it was also the home of Reverend Forrest Church, who you may have heard of. Dick Leonard is 95 years old, a warm and imposing figure. I think he's like 6'7" or something. And he's had an extraordinary life as a Unitarian minister. For example, In 1965, he walked those legendary 50 miles from Montgomery to Selma, Alabama. He was on the Edmund Pettus Bridge that day. So as we march bravely into a new year, we wanted to share some of Reverend Dick Leonard's words, which he hoped then and we hope now will inspire you going forward. How many words? 2.
Work hard.
Play fair.
Look ahead.
Keep smiling.
Act natural.
Avoid cliches.
Stay warm.
Keep cool.
Live free.
Come clean.
Do justice.
Don't smoke.
Avoid complications.
Fight crime.
Question authority.
Get married.
Stay married.
Pursue learning.
Entertain angels.
Don't overdo.
Don't underdo.
Judge not.
Keep focused.
Lose weight.
Pop corn.
Respect nature.
Try harder.
Think big.
Mend fences.
Donate organs.
Welcome strangers.
Pay bills.
Pay pledges.
Pay attention.
Love mercy.
Make whoopee.
Provide shelter.
Sow seeds.
Alter egos.
Consider lilies.
Cultivate beauty.
Keep hope.
Stand fast.
Grow up.
Age slowly.
Love God.
Suffer idiots.
Say prayers.
Stay well.
Pardon me.
Thank you. And as we extinguish the chalice, we offer one more. Blessed be.